I'm here with Stacey McAndrew, who has been nominated by her colleagues as Teacher of the Year at the Nicholas Copernicus School, Public School 25. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
So tell me, what do you teach?
I teach the best grade. I teach kindergarten.
And
Always kindergarten, 30 years.
30 years in kindergarten.
Yes.
And you
yes.
haven't been promoted once?
I don't want to be. I'm in the best spot. I love it.
What do you love about teaching kindergarten?
What's not to love? I love the children. I love how they love. You get all the love. It's like, if you're ever missing any love, you come to work. And I love your shoes. I love your shirt. I love your pants. I love your hair. They love you, just so much. And it's just, I feel, it's the foundation.
Absolutely.
And I don't think there's any grade where you see that much change. Like a September student compared to a June student is a whole nother world, and like around January, February, when you see that change, it's the best feeling ever when they finally, things start to click and they get it and they start to read and they're just so happy. It's amazing.
It is amazing. It is
really
very rewarding.
It really is so rewarding.
Yes. So did you always want to be a teacher?
Actually, no, I did not. I went to FIT and I started in fashion and I worked in Manhattan and it just wasn't for me. It was a lot of traveling, a lot of hours. I knew I wanted to have children and, it was just too much. And I saw my sister, she put off having children because the hours and just, so I decided. And my mom actually worked in schools and in the school. And she said, why don't you be a teacher? Yeah. And I knew as soon as I went back to school,
Moms know best.
I loved it.
And so were there teachers who made an impact in your life or that touched you? And
yeah, but I think in college, like when I went back to school for teaching, and my professors and some of the classes, they really encouraged me and brought out my creative side. And, I was able to see like, I'm good at this. I can do this, So I think it was later.
Sounds great. How do you incorporate, you talked about all the progress your students make and how they change by end of January, February, they really have matured tremendously. Yes. How do you bring about that change? What do you do in your class that makes it possible?
Well, routines from day one. When they come in, they don't, they're like fish out of water. It's very structured. Even now that we have pre-K, when I started, there was no pre-K in the public school. So you were getting most children from home. But now even with pre-K, it's a different world. Pre-K and kindergarten, I feel. They're coming in, they're eating, brushing their teeth, having a nap, going to the park. And we're not doing any of that. So now we have a little bit of a bigger struggle because they want to know, when is nap time? That's pretty much the first question I get every year. When is nap time? When are we going to the park? When is playtime? And I have to tell them, there is no playtime, there is no nap time, and we're not going to go to the park.
You really don't make kindergarten sound good.
But so we start routines, so they have to have a routine from day one, right off the bat. This is where this goes, this is where that goes, and they like the independence. And I think that brings about a lot of the change, where they become more dependent on themselves, and they know, and they like it. They like to know where their things go and what, the routine is. And then a few months in, they're telling me, we didn't do math. They know math comes after lunch. And, they're telling me, they start to tell me the routine. So I think that helps them become independent with themselves. And then with their learning, they become more, independent on wanting to learn and helping themselves and helping each other.
Yeah. What would you say to parents of young children, how to help them succeed in school? What do you think would be helpful?
Well, of course, working with their child. Learning doesn't end at 3 o'clock when school is over. I always tell them it continues, all day, even the little things. Your child is always learning, but just be a part of, the school. Get to know your teachers. I love to get to know my parents. I like to know all about them, and everybody has a story. Some you work nights and the grandmother helps with homework. So you want to know these things about your student because, it matters. You don't want to be like, you didn't do your homework again. When at home, when you know their story, you're more sensitive to, what kids are going through, so just be a part of, the school. Don't think teachers are there to, catch you or be, angry.
Communication.
Yeah, it's so important. Yeah.
What would you wish you had known when you started teaching? What do you know today that you wish you had known when you started teaching?
Just like building relationships are so important, always build those relationships with the parents and the students. It's so much better when you have a good rapport with your students and your parents. And, not everything is going to go as planned. Most things don't. Out of the thousands of lessons you're going to do, handful will go perfect. And there's always something going on that you didn't account for. And always have busy work. Always have a backup plan because, 2 minutes downtime and, somebody throws up or has an accident, 2 minutes to let them just, when you're trying to figure out is not good. So always have something ready for them in case something doesn't work out that the computer's down. You just don't want to have downtime in kindergarten. No downtime.
What happens when you have downtime?
Oh, well, that's it. It takes over. 2 minutes of downtime turns into 45 minutes of getting them back, into the routine and back to what we were doing. So you cannot have downtime.
That's a big lesson.
Yeah, it's a huge lesson. And I've learned that probably the hard way.
I think every teacher learns that the hard way. Yeah. No. Free time?
No.
That's not.
That's after school.
Yes. But it's obvious why you were selected as Teacher of the Year. Congratulations. Is there a final words you would like to share with the community about teaching in our schools or your children?
Yeah, just that. I never thought that I'd be here 30 years later, and it has flown. I can remember, pretty much my first day, one of the first teachers I met. I've been in 25 school for 28 of those 30 years. Mm-hmm. And she was there 14 years, and I thought, gosh, 14 years, that's forever. And now, like in a blink of an eye, 30 years has passed. And it's like, when you do something you love, it's like, it just goes fast and it's easy. I just want to say, like, it's, it has been easy, but not easy. You know what I mean?
Yes, but rewarding.
Yes. Yeah.
And fulfilling, I would say. Maybe not easy, but enjoyable.
Yeah, and it made the time go, I just can't believe how long it's been and how many,
Well, we're not going to talk about how long we've been around. So with that, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
It's obvious why you were selected, and we want to wish you continued success.